That is interesting.
Go.
It smells like popcorn.
Yeah.
Almost like a brisket, like you just had brisket or something.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Whiskey Rebellion. Today we are talking about global whiskeys that you maybe don't think about. Get right into our discussion. We're going to start talking about a whiskey from Taiwan, one of my favorite distilleries, Kavalan. You, the panel, please introduce yourselves.
Yeah.
My name is Dawn Roy, and I'm a recent 2-year convert into the bourbon whiskey environment, and it delights me so.
My name's Christian Dietrich. I'm a filmmaker, film producer, and I love whiskey. It's a hobby, it's a passion, but I've taken the leap into actually thinking about it professionally or working with it professionally. And I don't know, it's just a joy.
I don't like working with whiskey professionally.
No.
It's a pain.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a burden you
it
bear.
is. Literally, you start with like 6 bottles and you end up with
And then
2,000.
it turns into this.
Yes. It's a
And I've
problem.
told you before, we need to make this into a wallpaper.
Yes. I just tell
People
everybody-
would buy this.
I just tell people I have a nice rack.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Danny Byler. My brother Micah is behind the camera there, and he lives here in Richmond. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I am relatively new into the whole deep diving into some of the international whiskeys or some of the more rare or higher end stuff. But I love learning and I enjoy whiskey, so I'm excited to be here.
Do you know why your brother hates whiskey so much, though? I don't understand why Micah is so...
It's a problem.
I know. It really is. Like,
It's a mind blow.
I'm just kidding. Micah really loves whiskey. That's how we are standing here right now, because of a conversation Mike and I had. All right, so first whiskey. We have Kavalan. This is a very interesting Taiwanese whiskey. I want you to give it a taste and tell me what you think.
That is interesting.
Reminds me of something.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it actually, because I have this little synesthesia thing, so it's like my comments on it are like, it tastes brown. You know, it's like it's not really relevant.
Same thing, though.
Yeah, it tastes like a C sharp. Well, it's warm. It's kind of it has a little more earthiness, depth, kind of more. I'm not trying to say what's the umami? It's not umami. That's not what it is. But it has somewhere where it's going a little less of the top sugary notes than like a Kentucky bourbon. or
I
something.
find this whiskey has like
brown sugary notes.
a very fruity brown sugar quality.
Yeah.
Almost like tropical notes, and I actually think that has to do with the heat that Taiwan has in their aging and the way that the barrels interact with their whiskey. It creates a very different quality. These are aged in ex-bourbon casks. If you think about the way a bourbon tastes, it's nothing like this, right?
Not at all.
No.
Which is crazy because it's the same aging process, except it's just a malted whiskey, the same way a Scotch whiskey would be made.
I find it really interesting because it smells like a bourbon, and so I expect it to taste like a bourbon, and then it doesn't taste like a bourbon. Like it does, but it's very different from what I was expecting at first smell.
The nose that you're getting of it smelling like a bourbon, I think, is because they use ex-bourbon casks to age it. But it's actually not made like a bourbon at all. It's actually a malted whiskey, kind of like a Scotch.
I was trying to kind of process it for a second. I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna ask for like flavor notes. I'm like, I don't know, man. It tastes like whiskey, you know? Like, but no, seriously, it does have much more of a peaty, like Scotch, kind of vibe to it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't. I was also expecting it to kind of come from more of an American tradition of.
I like this because it smells really sweet, but then you taste it, and it has the peaty and the earthy and the a little bit spicy. It's very smooth too.
To me, as an ex-rehabilitated wine drinker, I think it's dry for me.
I can see
Yeah.
that.
There's a dryness about it.
Now, to put it into perspective, this is their base level whiskey.
Right.
And so every distillery has the one that they're just like, this one can be $50.
Right.
And it's for the masses. With Kavalan, I wish I had the capability to pour some of the better stuff that they've produced. They have a whole series that they call the Soloist, and man, the finishes on those are just immaculate. So this whiskey is from India.
All right.
India has a huge drinking culture amongst the people that do drink. There's a lot of people there that do not drink. And I have actually been to an Indian wedding where Johnny Walker was almost like the theme of the wedding. It was a very wealthy person's wedding, and I counted over 2,000 bottles of Johnny Walker of different varieties at this wedding. It was intense. They actually built whole rooms where it was just like boxes of Johnny Walker dividing spaces, and
Room dividers.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever leave that wedding. Like, you know,
I mean, it was 4 days, so like
Yeah,
you
nice.
wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But I've made a joke once, and to a friend of mine who's Indian, and I said that Johnny Walker is almost like a currency over there. He's like, actually, you're actually right. People really love whiskey over there, and over the last like 20 years, distilleries have started popping up in India, which is a new thing. This is Rampur, which I really appreciate their whiskeys. I think it's really good. In particular, this is a double cask Rampur, so it's an ex-bourbon as their first aging, and then ex-sherry.
Oh.
Stuff is.
What would you say for Rampur? Is there an analog, you think, for like an American analog to where Rampur stands? And
I don't know
India
that I would
as
actually
opposed
compare it to an American whiskey. I would compare this one to a Scottish whiskey. And actually, the next whiskey is kind of an example of the same type of aging process. So I want you to try those side by side. But if I said, hey, you should try this whiskey from India, this isn't what you would think, is it?
That's delightful.
I've noticed something really interesting with some of our Indian customers. They're huge fanatics for the best scotches, and they kind of downplay. They almost don't want to try this because in their heads they just feel like maybe it's not going to be as good. So I have to like really coax them to try it, and then once they try it, they're like, "Oh man, Rampur is amazing."
that is excellent,
That's
man.
a
I have to like
secret
actually
right there.
thank you because
That's it.
Yeah.
I had not
I
had
don't
this
think I
before.
ever
This
would
is
have
excellent.
thought to try this on my own.
And I will like. So
gonna
part of the
finish this.
adventure
There you are.
in doing all this through the years
I wanted
was
that. No, I wanted that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have before either. Like when I was younger, I just thought I knew everything. Actually, my grandfather had a great expression that I still kind of think about sometimes. He said, if I knew half as much now as I thought I knew when I was 18, I'd be a genius. And like that kind of resonated with me, not as much when I was younger as when I got older. I was like, yeah, he was right. Like I thought I knew everything when I was younger, and like the more I experience all this stuff, the more I realize I don't know that much. And so part of the beauty of my job is I get to teach myself about products, and this Rampur is one of those products.
To me,
I think I'm gonna have a
No,
moment
go
here.
for it.
to me, this tastes very floral.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's a little bit tropical, but very like that like fresh, lighter, florally flavor.
And I think that's coming out of the sherry casking that they did, as well as the extreme heat that they're aging in. India is not known for being cold.
Where in do you know where in India they?
That I don't know.
I've been to Kolkata and then north, kind of up near the Nepali border. So I'm curious of where this is coming from.
I want to go. I would second the floral notes on this, but I think it does have kind of like, to me anyway, a bit more of like a chocolatey finish,
Yes.
and it's a slow burn too. It's like it's really I wasn't picking up on that until like after I'd shut up, and then 10 seconds later I'm like, oh shit, chocolate.
So I want you to hold a little bit of that back,
Okay.
because
Gotcha.
our next whiskey that we're giving you is actually aged in a very similar manner to the one that you just had. This is Edradour, and it is from Scotland.
Sounds like something.
Which would in this
Right?
Yeah, I'm Edradour.
so Edradour is known for being like
You
the
shall not pass.
smallest production distillery in Scotland. They make about the same amount of whiskey all year that most distilleries on the large scale do in a week. So very small, handcrafted place, really beautiful. The processes of these two whiskeys are very similar. And so that's why I thought it'd be kind of cool to try them against each other, because ultimately Rampur's goal is to create whiskey that I think is similar to this one, or a Macallan double cask, or something along that lines. But in a way, I actually think that they shouldn't do that, because they're doing their own thing so well.
Right.
And it's so good.
Well, you definitely picked out 3 whiskeys that are completely opposite from each other. Like that is,
Yeah.
to have like 3 in a row. How often do you do that? Like you have 3 whiskeys in a row that are like completely not like each other at all.
So what do you think? How do you guys like the Edradour?
I like this one. I like this one a lot, and it's definitely something. Should someone serve it to me, I'd be complimenting them on it. It's excellent. I think my the Rampur was probably the most surprisingly. Oh my god! You know, like I'm gonna remember that label, and I will be buying that bottle at some point. Some of the same floral, I guess, but
It's
it
not as
almost
heavy.
has
It's, or it's not
more-
as noticeable. It's a much heavy. I feel like it tastes heavier and more earthy than floral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's the top notes is what I'm like smelling and then tasting right away,
Yeah.
versus how it finishes, and I'm just like, they're all smooth. They're all really good actually, but this has kind of again with the synesthesia, I guess it's really just a little more bright.
They're very similar in their taste profile, but this one comes on a little heavier.
Right.
Same earthy tone,
Mm-hmm.
same sweetness at the back, but Rampur's a little bit just comes in a little more gentler to you.
So now we're gonna completely change it up.
All right.
This whiskey is called Black Whiskey. It's from Don Michaels, and this is from Peru. It's an Andean corn whiskey. The corn itself is black when you look at it. When I have a corn distilled whiskey, I actually immediately think bourbon because that's how all bourbons are made. But this does not taste like any corn whiskey that
Do
I've
you know
ever
anything
had.
about the whiskey, the whiskey traditions? Like you're bringing up like whiskey from places that I've not bothered
So
to have whiskey from before.
Typically,
but,
their traditions are drinking other world's whiskeys, and people are starting to realize, well, you know, we can do this ourselves. And so this is a new one on me. I'd never had this until this year.
Go.
It smells like popcorn.
Yeah. And I think that's the definitely the corn note that you would catch from it.
yeah.
But
it
it's like, it has a buttery scent too, though, that I'm like, I don't know, tasting.
and then on the palate, it has like a smokiness that
Very much so.
I didn't-
Almost like a brisket, like you just had brisket or something.
Oh, that's a really good one. No,
That's
I,
good,
that
yeah.
I was searching for a word and failing terribly. So yeah, no, that it
But
does.
when you said smoky, I
it's
mean,
like,
that really does
Yes.
bring that.
like grill, like something
Yes.
like backyard grill.
Yeah, it's not like the
meaty.
smoky that you would get out of an Isla whiskey from Scotland, because that is medicinal smokiness. This is like mesquite or something along.
You
Yeah.
could so have a barbecue in the backyard
Yeah,
and pair this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's
I
like
think
a
that might be
sauce-
my
a
favorite. I know
sauce
you
with
like
this
the
is kinda
Rampur,
like
but
a
that
mix,
one
yeah.
might.
No, this is excellent.
Be
Yeah,
my
I know. I
favorite,
have to
yeah.
like edit myself. You know, this is excellent. This
They're all
None
very
of them
good.
are horrible.
Yeah.
It's
There's nothing. There's no bad.
Max gotta serve us like one terrible whiskey just to be like, oh god damn.
Oh,
That's kerosene.
let me get that fireball.
Yeah, Don't call that whiskey
Oh, that's
again and I'll jump
delightful.
across this spot.
We've traveled the horizons and have found lovely things.
So it never
Around
ends.
the
There's
world in
whiskeys.
80 whiskeys.
All of them.
There you go.
I wish we had time to try all of them, but there's.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys would be rolling out of here.
Who says we're not?
Well, I think that's a good place to end the show. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having us.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Are we allowed to finish these?
You finished them. You've already finished yours.
What's left for you?
Are we allowed to
Nothing.
finish?
What's left for you?